I have been taking photographs for 5 decades. During this time, I broke through parts of my mind that I never knew existed, and at the same time, created a style that is referred to as Ballenesque. I think my photographs will take you to a world that has been for many inaccessible.
So how are you doing in South Africa?
We have the same problem you do. Same problem.
And you have the
virus is out of control, bad politicians, a public that doesn't understand the problem. So we're in the winter months here. We're all the same problems.
Yeah.
All the same problems. I don't know when there'll be an end to this year. I
Me
don't
neither.
feel just no end. You know, the public's not capable of dealing with the problem. The government is hopeless, and just there seems to be no end, and it gets worse every day. So I don't know what to say. It's a very alarming situation here.
So are you doing great? Are you fine?
I'm fine. I'm working on 2 projects right now. One, it's called Roger the Rat. Roger the Rat. It's a book that Hotje Kant in Germany is going to produce in September. I think the pictures are really humorous. They're really interesting, and I think a lot of they're acceptable and understandable by a wide audience, but they're still art. And so this book's coming out in September, and I'll send you some examples of the book of the images. And then I made a 20-minute film on this, which I think is really strong film, and we'll launch that in September.
Yeah, I saw you were saying that you launched the movie in your movie you made for the gallery in France. You said it's a movie about a person
who thinks he's a rat.
Thinks a rat. Yeah.
Yeah, he thinks he's a rat.
So I prepared some quick questions. There is some about your work. And at first, starting at the beginning, and how did you become an artist? How was your first epiphany with art?
Well, see, my mother worked in Magnum in the 60s and started one of the first photo galleries in America with Cartier-Bresson and Cortege and Steichen and all these famous people. She got to know, and so she worked with him at Magnum as an assistant and then started this photo gallery. So I was in my teens in those days, say 14, 15, 16, and these people would come to the house and I would meet them and they'd leave their books and leave their photos. And so my mother was very passionate about what she was doing, and this passion wore off on me. And then in 1968, when I graduated from high school, my parents gave me a Nikon FTN camera. It was one of the first cameras where the light meter went through the lens, and so it was easy to operate in a way. And I immediately had a capability to take good pictures immediately. And so I got really, I was passionate right from the beginning, you know, and at age 18, you can see in the Ballenesque book, I was able to take pictures that I could still put in any museum and be proud of. And so this is how it started in 1968. I started to take pictures. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, no photographers considered themselves an artist. You were a photographer. You weren't an artist.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of moved into being an artist photographer in the mid-90s. I started to create my own aesthetic. I wasn't necessarily just documenting what was there. I was transforming the subject matter, whether it was people, whether it was the interiors, whether it was animals, and mixing them up in a very particular way that would later be referred to by some people as a Ballenesque aesthetic.
Concerning your work, you said that one of the most important goals for a human being to undertake is to better understand their mind. And some photographers spend their life capturing the external environment. And you turn inward to construct and visualize the personal workings of their consciousness, shaping alternative worlds in front of your lens. Do you believe that understanding others' minds, it is a way to understand better yourself?
Look, there's no end to trying to understand yourself. You can look at a cloud going by, and this could be of assistance. You can hear a sound, and that can be assistance. You can interact with a dog, and that can be of assistance. So there's no formula for this, and it's not a clear process. It's not a clear process. There's the consciousness, if you want to call the mind a form of consciousness. There's much, first of all, that to be understood, and secondly, much of what's to be understood is not verbal. It's not, you can't necessarily verbalize mind.
Sure.
Most of what you experience every minute of your life is non-verbal. It's non-verbal. You can't actually put all your emotions, all your feelings, all your perceptions into any one particular word. So this is why it's not necessarily a simple, easy process. It's an ongoing one that's as much something you can try to talk about, but with the full understanding that you're actually not going to really get there.
And when did you decide to research the mind through photography?
I think this goes back to my early days. You see, a part of the counterculture. I grew up in the 60s, and I went to University of California, Berkeley, which was the heart of the hippie period. And it was a period when people, there was a great interest in getting to know yourself psychologically. And so my first degree is in psychology. So I got a degree from University of California, Berkeley in '72 in psychology. So I was always interested in that aspect I was always psychologically orientated. But my photographs, I didn't have the sophistication of vision or the development. I hadn't developed my aesthetic to that level to be able to reveal that level of complexity. My first book, for example, was called Boyhood. I did that from 1973 to 78. And during that time, I did a 5-year hitchhiking around the world from Cairo to Cape Town, Istanbul to New Guinea, and into South America. So, and so when you look at what was the purpose of the book? The purpose was to find my childhood, to go back inside myself and to find something that just disappeared. So in a way, it was a psychological journey, but not to the same level it is now, which is much more complex. But this has been my personality since my 18, 19 years old. It's been part of me.
And it's curious because the psychoanalysis, it's to find yourself and to understand yourself in your childhood. And Freud said that when people have major traumas, in general, they are repressed through the unconscious. How do you manage to enter into other people's mind, bringing up things that maybe were hidden?
Well, it's actually, it's not necessarily when I do these photographs, it's not necessarily revealing other people's minds. I think the photograph itself, it creates my photographs have an ability to pierce the repression of other people's minds. So it's not necessarily about getting into other people's minds through taking the pictures. It's through the photographs I take that create that for whatever reason tend to break into their heads and stay there. And some people like this. Some people find this enlightening, and other people find it disturbing and challenging because they live, I guess, in a state of repression and they don't like to think about their own identity. So my pictures have an ability to get below, put it that way, and stay there. And that's why people remember what I do. And they're not necessarily social, political statements about contemporary life. They're about universal states of universal states of consciousness.
For sure.
And we live in a world, you can see wherever you go, it doesn't matter where you go, it's always, everything's the same problem all over the planet. It's lack of liberation, lack of mind liberation. Everything we see is about repression. So Freud was very sexual. He used a lot of what he said was about sexual repression, but Freud was absolutely correct in most of what he said. It's all about coming to terms with the repression. And I think my pictures assist people if they're open enough to do that. And so I think that's a contribution I can make, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a nice and a huge contribution to understand a little bit more about it. And how is your relationship with the people you portray?
Well, the relationship, is really excellent. I get so many calls and messages every day. I'm like a father figure, a priest, a doctor, a financier, a friend, a provider. Like I'm with the people I've worked with over the years. I'm like a father figure. That I think they just depend on me emotionally in so many ways. So I've rarely had a bad experience with anybody. And the places I work are difficult, violent, chaotic places. So, if you don't get along with the people well, then you're not going to survive, basically. But it is very important. It's extremely important to understand that since about 2002, 2001, the portraitures disappeared in the picture. So, there's been more animals in the picture, more drawings in the picture, more installations in the picture. So the subject matters themselves are not necessarily have anything to do with one particular individual.
For sure.
They're complex, I don't know what word to use, complex statements of the world, of consciousness. So they're not, so we don't necessarily, to understand what I'm doing, we don't, since they're 2002, it's not necessary to think about the subjects. Because, for example, I worked 5 years with birds. So what do the birds think? And after that, I worked on a 5-year project on rats, which hasn't been published. But, what about the rats? What do they symbolize? What do they elicit? So what is their meaning, and why do they have impact on the viewer? But there's not only rats in the pictures, there's drawings, there's objects, there's other animals, and sometimes people. So combined, they create an aesthetic that's mine, basically, that elicits a certain response from people that isn't necessarily. It's a complex response. Usually, it's not. They're saying, oh, they don't say, oh, it's pretty or it's beautiful, or they usually say it's. They haven't seen pictures like that before. That this is. They walk out with the pictures in their head. And so if you're an artist like myself, the most important thing is that the pictures have impact and they stay with people. And unfortunately, what we see in photography and art is that there's too much concentration on themes that the media has implemented already. So for example, one day it's this coming out of Hollywood, another day it's something else coming out about climate control, the next day it's something about this one's rights, and the artists are jumping on all these themes, but they're forgetting about what art for me is really about. It's a much more deeper, more substantial, more poetic, psychological, philosophical view towards the world, and I think this is what's important.
I'm very happy when I was studying more your work, and I know your work a long time, and I'm really happy because I think we have the same vision of art. I think art should have something on you, like should make something on you, even you are sad or you have some questions about yourself. Not just something to put in your walls that you think it's beautiful.
I agree with you. I totally agree. It's very good that, it's nice to hear a gallerist have those viewpoints, because, I think a lot of people in the business tend to just follow the lead of the media. And we get in a situation where the art is no longer an individualistic view of the world, a more deeper view. It's just follows the media. So it's actually the worst thing happening, because we don't want to be a tool of the media. I can't see that that's the purpose of an artist, to be the tool of CNN or something like this. We have to have some vision that more substantial than that. So I think this is an important thing that I really is. I'm 70 years old now. It's a very important thing to me.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing things really going wrong in art in general. Things are, what I grew up with and what I feel is a very specific, unique part of human endeavors. It's being intruded by other forces.
And it's not easy to be an artist and a gallerist with that vision, because the market, it's always how can I say, cruel, because
It's decorative. The art,
you need to sell at
geared
the
towards
same time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
Yeah.
problem. So,
Yeah.
the market is decorative. The market is about investment. The market is about status. So people aren't buying art, for enlightenment, or being challenged about who they are. They're not buying it for that reason. And so you're absolutely correct about what you say. Correct.
I think art and the market of art are completely different things. Like, yeah.
No, you're 100% right. You're absolutely right. And this is something that's occurred over the last 20 or 30 years. And I don't know what this virus problem how that will change it, if it will change it. I don't see myself as an optimistic person or a pessimistic person. I can't predict anything.
Yeah. And
I can't predict the future. I don't know anything any more than anybody else does.
yeah, me neither, yeah. And there is an important presence of animals in your photographs. And how do animals relate to humans, and then the concept of humanity in your work?
Well, first of all, I always liked animals, so I always found that I had an affinity to them. I just love them. I've always had that feeling about them. And in the photographs, I've always, there is a complex interaction between the people and the animals and the places. So look, the animals, if you look at the pictures over the last 15, 20 years with animals, I guess you can come up with two important points. One is, where do the personalities of animals and people, where is the link? Where is the similarity? Where's the difference? Is there a difference? What's what? So who's more of an animal in a way? So these are important things that you can think about and come to some conclusion if you can. And the other is just look at the relationship between the animals and the people in the photographs. And there's very rarely a harmonious relationship. It's not a happy relationship, because there isn't a happy relationship in the world between nature and humanity. It's an awful situation. It's a terrible situation. So it's not harmonious. People think because they're nice to their cat or their dog that there's some affinity between humanity and nature. There isn't. Humanity and nature are at odds with each other.
And in your book and in the movie Outland, I love this book, and I love the movie too. One of the people you portrayed is Stan, and he has a special relationship with rats. And at the end of the movie, you say, tomorrow, like every day for the past 20 years, Stan will get up, catch rats, take them home, let them go. And I love this. So now you just finished a film about someone who thinks it's a rat. Did the story of the people you photograph influence your work?
Yeah, it's always interactive. The people influence what I do, and I guess I influence them in some way or another. But yeah, it's an ongoing process. That's why I always tell students, they spend a lot of time going to museums or looking on the internet. The only way you really improve is you have to go out there and take pictures. That's it. And as you take pictures, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from what you do well, and then you build on it. But without the constant taking of pictures, you don't get anywhere. You don't go anywhere. So you have to go out there. So, so my, where I am now as a photographer has come out through 52 years of work. It's one day after the next and one picture after the next, and learning from what I do. And that's how I got there. Maybe in the beginning I looked at Magnum for photo books, but now I hardly ever look at I don't have to look at anybody's pictures anymore. I don't have to look at anything. I can just look at it. I don't need to. I just get there and I work on instinct and experience.
But it's 50 years of experience.
That's 50 years.
Yeah.
50 years, day in after day after day after day. You know, in some years I worked harder, and I guess in the last 20 years I worked most days. You know, before that it was more of a hobby.
And it's an obsession too. No, it's a passion.
It's an obsession.
Yeah.
But it is an obsession, and I think generally in life, the people who do well in what they do, they have to have a certain obsession, otherwise they don't do well.
Recently, we started to draw and paint on canvases, and I saw some of the images, and I was surprised by the way these drawings are related to your photographs. And if I'm not wrong, since 2002, you started to paint on the walls of the places you photographed. How these drawings are related to your work and to the subconscious of the people who see your photographs?
Well, you see, you know, when you make a drawing, I don't necessarily have an idea. I don't think, oh, I'm going to make this or I'm going to make that. The drawing evolves like the photographs evolve. When I go out and try to take a picture, I always say I go with a silent mind. I never think about what I'm going to do. I can't figure out how things interact or how they work together. So I go with a silent mind. And what I do is an art and a science. An art because I work with emotions, science because I've been doing this for years. I understand cause and effect. So, you know, and then at the end, when maybe I take the picture or I try to make the painting, I say to myself, is this picture saying something that I wanted to say? Does this picture reflect the same, a certain level of or certain standard that I want to aspire to? And if it doesn't, then I won't take the picture. And if the painting isn't any good, I'll just throw it away or use it for something else. So, you know, I think it's very important to have a certain standard, you know, and you have to find your own standard for yourself. It's like you have to look in the mirror yourself. You know, if you look to Facebook and you look to Instagram, you might find false standards. You have to have your own standard and live with it and try to develop it. And that's important. And there's not that many people who are working on that level as far as I can see right now.
Not at all, yeah. And we are really, really, really happy to work with you. And
yeah, me too. I'm also happy. And, you know, I've had a number of very successful museum shows in Brazil over the years. I've always enjoyed coming to Brazil, and I've got a lot of enthusiasm coming there and being there, and met a lot of interesting people and enthusiastic people. So I'm really happy that we're able to work together and keep things going in Brazil. And I'm really looking forward to meeting your collectors and showing for you to show them some of my work. And if they have any questions or you have any questions, always feel free to pick up the phone or send an email or whatever. And I don't know whether we'll see each other in Paris Photo this year. We'll have to see, but hopefully sooner or later we'll see each other again.
Yeah, hopefully here in Brazil with an exhibition here in São Paulo.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward. I can't wait. Can't wait.
And thank you very much for your time. It's great to talk to you, and I hope to see you really soon.
Yeah, me too. And let's hope we both stay healthy and
for sure.
And looking forward to staying in touch. Keep well.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Photography has been a vehicle that has allowed me to reach a point where the only answer to my existential questions is no answer. I've calmly stated that the most profound word in the English language is nothing. I come from nothing, know nothing, and will become nothing. My photographs are likely to outlive me.